So 要关门吗？
不用
Okay. So shall we start? Okay. So welcome everyone. So first of all, I think we need to thank you for our sponsor now, okay, Panda Software. Yeah, but is it? So he's sponsor of this event. So and usually we will have our Rust event every 2 months once. Okay. So if you want to follow up, you can get into our group. Later on, we will share you the link. Okay. So get into our Telegram or either Facebook group, okay, or either Discord as well. So you can get some update there. So thank you everyone. And I think I need to introduce myself and my team first, okay, in case you guys don't know. Okay, on my right hand side is Jeffrey, so he's working in Asia. Okay, so and Ivan, so he's working in Panda Software. Okay, so and me as host today, I'm Xianglong. So if you want to add me later on, you can get my social media. Okay, so so we start today. So our Telegram later we will share again. Okay, Eventbrite link as well. Okay, and our future events hopefully we can do this. Okay, we haven't have the final decision yet, but it's on the draft already. So on June we will have a workshop in AQ. Okay, so before I start Rust, I think some of them they don't have any knowledge, especially I'm not sure who is first time use Rust. So one, okay, two, okay. So I need to introduce something first. I mean Rust first, okay, in case those maybe. Okay, Rust is a programming language. So programming language is like our human language. Okay, so we can use Malay to communicate with your Malay friends. I can use Chinese to communicate with you. So it's a kind of language. Okay, but in order to communicate with PC, right, we cannot use. I mean, in the future, yes, we have a LLM. We can communicate using English, okay, but on the kernel, we cannot use human language to communicate with the PC. So we need to use a computer language to communicate with, to give instruction to our PC to do what they want to do. Okay, so so Rust today is reaching 1.68 version. So this is very stable. A lot of people using it in production. Okay, so if you want to use it in hobby as well, it's okay. But for production, it's better tested. So it's fully fledged. I think it's very stable English. Okay, and then so afterwards you will see like right now they have some activity. I would say some campaign or activity lah. Okay, a lot of people they have one shout out called rewrite in Rust. So short form is RIIR. Okay, every library you have, your framework you have, you need to rewrite it in Rust. Don't bother what reason, so you just rewrite it. Okay, so using Rust. Okay, so so this is the first. I think it's one of the project as well. It's a C++ project. Okay, it's written in C++, and then they decided to rewrite it in Rust. Okay, and the PR already merged it, and they did it as well. It's basically it's a terminal or command prompt. Okay, it's a better command prompt written in C++. It's very similar to your terminal, your PC terminal, but it's written in it's a better version, like ZSH, something like that. Okay, but today they write and merge to it. Okay, so they will continue their Rust journey right now. Okay, so and this second project as well, also rewritten using Rust as well. But I'm not going to go deep for this. Okay. And this the Rama also rewrite in Rust. This is probably the latest, very latest one. What we call LLM is what language? Large language model on behind of OpenAI. Okay, OpenAI behind is using large language model to do all the their logic. Okay, so today previously they are written in C++. Today they rewrite it in Rust. Okay, so and Cloudflare as well. They have created one proxy framework using Rust. Okay, if you want to create it's a framework, it's not a library, it's something like a toolkit. So today if you want to create a proxy server, you can use this library, this framework. Okay, so and this is one of the projects as well. Mojito is to do testing. Okay, also written in Rust. So if you want, when you're writing your Rust program, right, you can use this one to write your unit tests, whatever test, E to E tests, okay, end-to-end tests as well. So to write your testing, you can use this library. Okay, and this Melissus is a search engine very similar to Elasticsearch. Okay, you can replace this with to your Elasticsearch, but Elasticsearch is written in Java, but this one is fully in Rust. Okay, so but this one also is proven you can use in production. I did use in production as well, so no issue. Okay. For this, I'm not going to go through because this is not something you guys would use as well. And this one was as well. Is some of the library and project are written in Rust. Okay, but this one also not okay. And recently we Rust community we happen. I mean they have one incident happen in Rust community. In case you guys don't know, it's because of Rust foundation. Rust language behind they have a foundation. It's something like okay. Ivan behind got Panda Software. Okay, they have an organization behind. So this Rust Foundation they decide to trademark Rust logo and Rust keywords, those kind of related, okay, Rust related stuff. They want to trademark it. So after trademark, right, you cannot use Rust keyword anymore. Okay, especially for commercialized stuff, you cannot use Rust to sell any shit. Okay, sell stickers, sell merchandise. You cannot do. You need, if you want to do conference, you need to ask for permission from the foundation. You grant permission from the foundation in order to do conference. If you never do any, never inform them, right, you will get sued. Okay, so but this is still in the draft. So let's see how it will turn out. Okay, so well, okay. So this is one of the foundation in case you guys don't know. Okay, and this is some reading material. If you guys are using Python as well, I heard some of you are using Python. Actually, you can integrate your Python program with Rust as well. Okay, so you can write certain code in Rust and certain code in Python. So you can integrate and the link you can get from us as well later on. So see how to if you want to more deep dive into it, that ask Ivan did before. Okay, later you can come to him. Okay. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So before I continue, a bit of introduction. Both of them are from they are new co-hosts, and I'm usually the co-host for the Rust Meetup Malaysia, but both of them are new here. Yeah, so we run into some issues.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
Do we still have anything? If not, then I can proceed to you. Yeah, I think probably that much from the slide. I think we can proceed to later on. I will pass to Ivan to present from React to this Diosys. Okay, it's a framework as well. So yeah. So I think we can start with Ivan now. So after the presentation, you guys basically we will do some networking here. So if you want to ask questions, we will have FAQ as well. So FAQ and then afterwards is networking. So networking, just gather around and
Try
find
the
your
screen.
friends. Okay. Yeah. Go on.
Okay, so today the talk I'll be giving is mainly more on front end. So the title is From React to Deoxys. React, if you all don't know, anyone here is from like front end developers? Anyone or familiar with front end? You all did a bit of JS, something like that. Okay, so like in the front end framework, right, JavaScript, the most popular one is called React. As in, it's done by Facebook. And then React, beside React, there's also like Vue. I like Vue also. I like Vue. And then there's also Angular, which is done by Google. So three of them have different styles when they are doing when they build the stuff. And then let's say if and then for Rust, where it comes to place is there are many front end frameworks in Rust. So today I'll be looking into something called Deoxys. Okay, so a bit about the Deoxys is there are many, because in the past, right, we have one speaker from Penang. He gave a talk on the Rust framework, front end framework as well. We rarely have front end framework in Rust, but this one is one of them. And the other one is the one that he used is called Sycamore. There's another, both of these is quite new compared to the other older ones that's more mature, but both of why I introduced this, I'll mention about it later. So React is the most popular framework, JavaScript framework. JavaScript is in case you don't know, JavaScript is like the language for the web, programming language for the web, and then it's a framework, as in, say framework, no, people call it a library, more like not quite a framework, but more like a library, because you can write stuff that is very flexible. The flexibility comes with the disadvantages is that people can write very different styles, and then it might be not what you expected. And React uses VDOM by default. VDOM means virtual DOM. The DOM is the document object model where, let's say, your browser browse through a web page, and then the DOM is like how your browser will specify the stuff are laid out there, so that the whole HTML thing is inside. There's a DOM version of it there. And then VDOM is, what is VDOM? Is virtual DOM, means that the virtual document object model, as in, it's virtual, as like how to say, as in the React itself will maintain its version of the DOM. Why? Because it doesn't render directly to the DOM directly. Some of the tools, if you use JavaScript, you just like, let's say you change an element or something, it will render directly to the element, render directly to the DOM. It will do update directly. But React doesn't do that. What React does is it uses something called virtual DOM, as in it has its own version of the DOM, and then once everything is done, everything is calculated there, then it renders to the DOM. It do a diff. There's an overhead of when using with DOM, because it needs to calculate like the diff, and then it renders everything one shot. There's virtual DOM, and then so React target webs by default, like the website, but the React also is like can be used for other platforms, like React Native targets mobile, and then mobile as in like the native mobile. You have a question? Yeah, and then Electron targets the desktop, like the desktop application, like Slack, something like that. And let's say there are also other React alternatives, like for example Preact, which is like a lighter version of React, and then there's also like Solid.js, which is like they have some stuff that's different, like it doesn't do VDOM. Solid.js is a bit different. It doesn't do VDOM, but then it how to say Solid.js uses like it doesn't do UDOM, but then it uses something like signals, something like that, like something like Sycamore, but the style is like React. And now about Doxus. Doxus is one of the Rust front-end framework that aiming to be ergonomic. It's compared to the other frameworks that Rust has currently. It's not that ergonomic, as in you need to write a lot of boilerplates to run something. And Doxus is based on React hooks. React hooks is like when React come out, it's like class-based component. Everything have class, but then after that they come out with React hooks where you can write functions and then to define a component, and it makes it like looks more ergonomic, but there are some issues with that also due to the design of hooks. And then Doxus uses Tauri under the hood. What is Tauri? Tauri is like a how to say? It's like a Rust render. It's a engine that renders to that does the web view and that kind of stuff under the hood, and then it can render to different platforms. It's like a cross-platform support for web view. Something like Electron. Tauri, you can think of something like Electron. It's like cross-platform support. So it can support the desktop, and it can support the mobile and the web. No, not. Yeah, web also. But the difference is that Tauri, right, it is not specific to Doxus. It can support JavaScript framework, as in like you want to write Svelte or write React, and then you can use Tauri, and it can be like an alternative to Electron. But Tauri is a bit new, so it might have some issues that it's not as stable as React. No, not as stable as Electron. And then Doxus also uses VDOM, but I hope it does not. So I hope it can use VDOM directly, but it doesn't have that innovation level yet to use DOM directly. But VDOM have some benefit is that it's easier to implement the server-side rendering, as in because it keeps a DOM virtually on the server side, so it can do server-side rendering easily. If let's say if VDOM is not used, then if people want to implement server-side rendering, as in like render from the server side, there will be some extra cost to work on that. There will be extra work to do that, but if they use VDOM, they'll be easier to implement server-side rendering. And Doxus also targets multiple platforms under the same organization. Yeah, the people that create Doxus Labs, they target multiple platforms, but most of the others I didn't try out, but quite a bit unstable, I would say. So now we have platform support. So there's native. They say it's good, and then native means like native means like the native platform, as in like Electron, that kind. Yeah, like Electron, that kind. The web means directly on the web page. Web, how it works on web is through WASM. I think I didn't write it here, but it's through WASM. WASM means web assembly. Like it's like assembly but for web. And then once that assembly runs, it's sent to different platforms. WASM is like a binary, and it's already pre-compiled. That's why there's some performance benefit of using WASM. It's like it's not just quite a few languages can compile to WASM. It's like you can compile like Rust in WASM, C to WASM, a couple of other languages to WASM. And WASM, the browser can execute it, but currently there's no way to execute WASM directly without having a JavaScript rule. So you still need to write some JavaScript and then to execute the WASM. Then only the WASM will work. There's nothing to say that okay, browser can just throw in this WASM and then it will load the WASM directly. But currently there isn't something like that, so it needs a little bit of rule code. And WASM is like it's like assembly. So if let's say you want to implement string like that, some string or something like that, it's not that doesn't have string. So the language have to do something about that. So it's not like everything it have WASM, like it doesn't have file system access and those kind of things. It can't have that. There's another thing called WASI have that, but today we won't be talking about that. So web, and for Doxus, it comes with reloading by default, as in like you change your code then you reload. But the first time I tried it, I call it slow reload because it's very slow. I changed something and then I take 25 minutes to 25 seconds to like reload the browser, and then compile everything, reload browser. It's enabled by default, but then I need to specify the word hot reload. Then it will they use something called RSX, and then it will it's like JSX. JSX is like the React, you can put the HTML template within the JavaScript code itself, but RSX is similar to that. And then it will compile only the RSS code part and then send to browser. That's why it's fast. If you change only the templating part. Then SSR is support server-side rendering, like I mentioned, like renders from the server side. There are some caveat is that it cannot, the virtual DOM, right, is not non-send. Send is a Rust trait. So like how to explain send? Send is like Rust have something called trait to define the patterns of, to define the traits of like something. Let's say like to define the trait of something, like let's say trait is something like a virtual implementation. You can think of it like a Java implementation, as in like you define it's like class but without the property. As in like you define trait is something like you define the trait, then you need to say if something implements this trait, then you need to implement all the function. Like let's say you have a trait called quack, like duck can quack, right? Then you say duck implements this quack, then this duck have a function called quack, then you can expect that trait. And then the function, when you can call a function called quack if it implements that trait. So here send is a trait, and send is a trait that is default in Rust. The send trait is useful in concurrency system, as in there are two traits in Rust to work with the because Rust have something called ownership and lifetime. I won't be talking about a lot about that today, but there's something called that. And then ownership prevents something from moving between threads. So send is something to say, okay, if you have this variable, it is safe to send this variable to another. It is safe to send this variable to another thread. Let's say, yeah, it's safe to send it across. And then there's also sync. So the other counterpart of send and sync, other counterpart is called sync, SYNC. Then send and sync is the two traits that lets you work on two important traits to make the thing called fearless concurrency. Because Rust has a term they call it fearless concurrency, as in you write a code with multiple threads, even on multiple threads, then you can, when you compile, it work. It's like very, very magical. And it even solved like part of the data rate. It also solved the data races issue. Like you don't really get data races if you compile a code with safe code. As in like, so these two traits help guarantee that. Let's say if have anyone work with C here? No. So let's say if you work with C, right? If you rate C have man pages, the manual pages. Let's say you rate the manual pages, then you see, okay, sometimes you see that it says this function is not thread safe. Something like that. Then you need to remember, or when you code, I need to remember, this doc say this function is not thread safe, so I cannot put this variable across to another thread. If I use this, then there might be some weird issue happen. So you need to remember. Then people's solution for this last time was like, just be careful, just remember to read the documentation, remember to check the whole program to make sure that there's no issue. And usually when people say just be careful, right, then it doesn't work because people make mistake. Then Rust has something called send trait. Let's say if this variable cannot send, it's not send here means the exclamation mark means not send. Means the variable itself cannot be shared, cannot be sent to another thread. So it cannot be executed in another thread. So means it's not like, so it cannot be like, you cannot send the variable, pass the variable to another thread, the ownership. So means you cannot use it in another thread. So that's why, because of this, it cannot hold virtual DOM. There's a virtual DOM structure, you can say. You cannot hold it across await points. Because await points, right, because usually like from await points, it can be any threads that is any thread can jump in and then execute. Because Rust await, the async await is based on like automata, something like that. So let's say it can go like in order. So it will have a logic, say okay, this and then this. Yeah, it's like predefined, something like that. And then, but this send trait is required by most web frameworks like Axum. Axum is one Rust web framework that's quite popular and new, and developed by the Tokyo team. So there's some caveat here. And then live view. Live view is something I'm not quite sure. I first heard of this thing. It's like you render on the server, but then the server send what you render on the server and then renders it in a browser. Like you run the app on the server, then you render directly from the browser, render directly from what you see from the server. I never tried this before, but I don't think I've seen something like this. Some mobile also have, but I didn't try, the support is poor. And then terminal I also didn't try, it's experimental, so it renders the HTML with Flexbox. Okay, so it looks like this. Project loaded, reloaded, then it will compile. Then the build time is like 26 seconds. Okay, so about the talk mainly, it will be front end on Deoxys. And as I mentioned, Sycamore was discussed in the previous meetup. And then there are other web frameworks like U, Seed, which are more mature and have been around for quite some time. Sycamore is a bit like based on Vue. Based on Vue instead, based on signals and Vue, that kind of concept. eGUI is more on like a custom kind of rendering. eGUI and ICE both is like more on a custom kind of design. So a few of them based on different kind of what's it? So there's this website, are we going at GUI yet? So the roots aren't deep, but the seeds are planted. So there are quite some updates, but there are less updates since last time already. Okay, and then let's say there's also this website to say the current state of the Rust web frameworks. And the cross-platform support, why I look at Deoxys is because it have cross-platform support. The other Rust web frameworks doesn't have this. It have the mobile support, which other frameworks doesn't have, which is interesting because like one thing can support mobile and support the web. And then there's also ergonomic. This is quite ergonomic compared to others, and there's hot reloading. A lot of others doesn't support reloading, especially in WASM kind of thing, because JavaScript is like, JavaScript is easy to do hot reloading, but this one supports hot reloading. And innovative, it's a very is a game engine written in Rust. It's a game engine, quite innovative as well. It develops at a very fast pace. And I want to see what is the state of Deoxys and how is it like React. Does it have foot guns? Like because like Rust is a language that tries to be correct. Like it tries to cover as much stuff as possible. And there's also a saying that goes, if it compiles, it works. Like let's say you compile a Rust program, then once you compile already, then you run it, or then it works. So usually you won't get like runtime error. Like for example, JavaScript you have like undefined something is undefined, right? Something is undefined, or you don't get like segmentation fault. Like let's say you double free in C, you get segmentation fault. So usually it compiles, it works. But in Rust, in this case, no, because it's WASM. But yeah, it's mainly due to the WASM support of libraries, the ecosystem. Some of the libraries doesn't support WASM well yet. As in like, even like standard, the library supported by the standard library team, like random crate doesn't run on, like the random crate doesn't run well on the browser. So there are interesting new ideas, but not there yet. So today I'll share about two experiments I did. One is improving the to-do MVC on Deoxys itself. To-do MVC is like something like do a to-do and then do a to-do app, and then you'll see press to-do, that kind. And the other one is like try out React Fugan as mentioned in the website. So first is this, the pull request. So there's this add more features. So this is the to do MVC. So I added like a couple of features like toggle all button, double click, modify to do item like this kind of thing. So let's see the to do MVC. It looks like, so these are the changes I did. And once I did these changes, it's like on par with most of the to do MVC application. As in feature wise. And what I learned from it. Okay, let's look at the source code a bit. So it looks more like this. Like there's a desktop, because it's a desktop app. Because this is a desktop app, so it's like a desktop launch kind of thing. And then there's this state. This is enum in Rust, as in enum can represent like a couple, like it's like C have enum, but it's not like C enum, because this is like a sum type. As in like this all, right, you can contain stuff. As in like here, let's say you see all, you can put data within the all itself. This enum you can put in more item. Like all, you can bracket and then you put something inside. And then let's say all have this item and then active don't have this item. Maybe later I can show demo, but now I don't have it yet. So this is enum. As in like it can be one of these state, like it can be all active or completed. And then to do item struct, I think struct is very easy to understand because it's from other languages also have. And this derive is like code generation, basically generate code in Rust, generate this trait. And then so this is like the app. This is like the function. These are functional based. This unlike U, which is like Elm based. Elm based is a bit more verbose, as in you need to specify the message, how to pass it. Like one event happened, you will need to say okay, this event will cause this message, and then this message you need to have how to handle this message. But this function based kind of style is like more ergonomic, as in you see the use state. This is a bit like React, but I quite like this pattern is because React will have two items. React use state will return two items. One is the getter and one is the setter. Getter will get the variable, and then setter will set the variable. But this one they do it quite ergonomic, as in you have only one variable, and then you can get and set at the same time. And then so this looks like React and use state. Okay, so roughly like this, and then you can do the logic here, how to do filter. I'm quite surprised by this because because you can do filter here. As in you can run the filter here directly, and then this code will execute when the stuff changes. Let's say some other code changes, then this code will get executed. So I'm a bit surprised by this because I don't see this in React. And because you just run code here, React don't have this. And from what I remember, React you need to run a function or something. Okay, and then you can do the same pattern now, as in like you just run and then just say okay, you have this variable. So this pattern makes it look a bit like the observable I see in Angular. As in like just say okay, this variable is based on this, change to this. From one thing change to another thing, and then it's a bit like the observable pattern, but not as complicated. Like this is straightforward, like you write normal Rust code, but then it works. So this one is mesh. Like mesh is like a switch, but then it's like comprehensive, as in it will mesh everything. Like let's say if you miss one item here, then it will complain. I think mesh is useful as in cases like let's say what I experience is like in other languages, right? I have enum or something like that. I have like a couple of cases I want to handle. Let's say I have a plus minus. I handle these two cases. In the future, let's say the enum only have these two choices, plus and minus. In the future, I add another one called equal. Then I need to search through the whole code base and then to see okay which part uses the plus minus, and then I need to add an equal to be handled there. But then mesh solve this problem, as in I don't need to go through the whole code base to know okay this part I need to add equal. Because if I add plus here, I add minus here, add plus here, and next time when I add the equal to the enum, right, the compiler will put error, say okay you didn't handle the equal variant. But then in other languages it might not be the case. maybe type languages can but other language might not be the case. Then you need to go through the whole code base and then you need to search, okay, which part use what. If it doesn't, then you miss you miss already, then wait, the code go to production, then hit an issue, then only you know, or there's this issue, or you forgot to add it here. So Rust will tell you ahead of time that, okay, you forgot to handle this variant. So it will tell you, you need to handle this variant. But this thing here is like a wildcard, so it will like say, okay, everything that is not one will be this. Then this is a closure. Then this is a RSX. RSX looks a bit like the JSX. JSX is like how to say? Later I'll show you an example of JSX. But JSX is more like writing HTML template and then it can run JavaScript code inside. And then but that JSX is in JavaScript. RSX is more like the Rust kind of writing for HTML. So it writes in this style. But this RSX is specific to the Deoxys. Others doesn't have this. So you write it like this, and then you write it like this H1, because there's no opening closing tag. I quite like it as in like you can specify everything through this way, as in you write the tag and then you write the opening the parentheses and then closing parentheses. So this is the how you write, and then you can write class through here, and then you can write the place, like all these attributes by specifying the attributes and then add it in. Quite straightforward and easy to learn. I don't really need to spend a lot of time to learn this. And then this is the input, and then you can specify a function here also, like this is a closure. And then I'm quite surprised that you can just write function like so huge chunk of function here, because this RSX is a macro, but it's not. Rust has a couple of kind of macro, but I'll say this is a macro. I'm not quite sure which kind, but I think it's it's like the running code macro. I won't explain a lot more on the macro for that. Okay, so this one I'm a bit surprised as in this RSX I can write the conditions here. Because Rust I can write condition like this if. But then I'm really surprised I can just write it like this inside the code, and then I can render it directly. Wish I can do it like this. This is a bit surprising for me. But there are some caveats like you need to put RSX inside. And let's say I want to do like a multiple item, then I can just do filter and map. I can write the normal Rust code inside here, and then you run it through. And then others is like similar. This is kind of similar. And then for loop, I can write here. Yeah, so basically here, and then this is for another component. This is how that they pass the properties to the component. So I just define properties and then derive properties, and then I just pass it in. And you can see, right, everything here have the CX here, the context. And this thing, I won't be explaining this now, but this is the lifetime, as in like this specify how long the variable will last. And then this is a scope, so that this scope that's passed everywhere, and then you can, based on the scope, you can use it. And then this is how they pass the variable. Then you can know, oh, this thing contains this, as in it's explicit, like as compared to JavaScript, it's explicit, as in you know this will be passed in, like it's very explicit. There are pros and cons, but it's like this, no? Like you can, yeah. Also I quite like this, as in this is like the F string in Python, as in you can just render and then you just say, okay, you want this variable and this variable here. So this is roughly how it looks for the to-do MVC. Let me go through like what is good and what's bad. So good is like it's function based. Here is function based. As in you write one function. This is like the hello world kind of code. You write one function, then you run it, then you render hello world. And then this is like a div. Looks quite straightforward. And then it's also ergonomic, as in like no elms down messaging. Like if you look at the U, you have the message block, and then you have the handle update block. You want to update the code. And then this one is also grippable, like as in if you want to see where you use the state, you can just search for use state. And then other good like hot reloading, and then you have the home build RSS, looks like JSX, looks something like this. Because you can put subsequent stuff here. and there's no closing tag, you don't have to forget the closing tag or something. And then but there are some caveat with format arguments, because sometimes it doesn't work with conditional or the loops. The one that I even more surprised is it even works with match. Match is like the matching what kind of variable it can be. But the integration is not that good. What is bad is that I noticed that the Boolean, right, you cannot just put true and false. You cannot just put a Boolean directly, you need to put like a string. And then the use state have no compile time lifetime check. Like it check at runtime. But there are some limitations of this design. They just want to make it ergonomic, that's why it's like this. And then a bit surprised is like why is that on double click doesn't work, then it's called on DBL click. I don't know whether other languages like in JavaScript it's like this, but it's like on DBL click, and I tried on double click, doesn't work double click. Then I need to change it on DBL click. And then the docs also suggest to use non-standard casing, like it use snake case, because Rust have a naming convention, as in function name use snake case, and then like the structures use Pascal case, as in like first capital and then each subsequent word is capitalized. And the bad is like some style, if the style is not that clean, as in you need to, in desktop you write like this to add Tailwind CSS in. Tailwind CSS is like one of the CSS style like Bootstrap, but a bit more lately more popular, but as in it needs to pass the CSS very minimal one, kind of put everything everywhere. And then there's also Daisy UI, is based on, it's a component on top of Daisy UI is a component on top of the Tailwind CSS, because Tailwind CSS is very bare, there's nothing there, and then Daisy UI do the components. So I need to put this. So the other thing that's bad is like although there are type safe CSS class plugins, as in like there's this Tailwind CSS and Daisy UI crate for Rust. These are all type checked. As in like I put the real type here. This is a real type. Then when I put the real type here, right, I can check the type. But one downside here is that the conversion time is longer, because it's not integrated to the Deoxys itself. I mean, it's done by third party. Yeah, the benefit is type safe, but then like, do I need this type safe with additional compile time? I wouldn't want that. And then there's also no preprocessor. Preprocessor is like, after you write, usually in JavaScript library world is like, once you write the preprocessor, right, as in once you compile the code, the stuff that you didn't use, it will remove it. So that's the preprocessor job. But there's no preprocessor support, so the output size will be large. So you have to use a full-blown CSS. So I just import the whole CSS in, and then it requires full code compilation. Like once I change like remove one of class, then it requires change, and took like 25 seconds, something like that. So not that good. So I would rather stick with something. That's why I just use plain string, and then don't touch this class thing, unless maybe next time it's faster. If it's faster, then maybe I'll use it. And most library doesn't work well with Wasm, as in like, because Wasm have some limitation, and then like even the library, like the random, I use lorem with some. Then I noticed, how come every time I run lorem with some in the for loop, right, it's the same thing. And then I noticed, because the random crate doesn't work. Yeah, but there are some issues like this which are a bit surprising. Like if I write normal code, native code, it works. But then how come when I use it on the Wasm, how come it's different in output? So something surprising like this, and it isn't called at compile time. So I hope like it can be called at compile time, as in like when I compile it said it doesn't support, but it didn't. And yeah, so maybe a bit more crates that doesn't support the Wasm as well. And then no official documentation on how to mutate the bro. So the documentation not there yet. So I need to do something like this to support mutating this. I pass in the state, and then I pass this state to the child component, and then child component can use this ID, and then I can mutate the parent component state. As in the state, this one is taken from the parent component. Here the state in the Rust have a bit clearer ownership, as in like this state this NTH here is owned by the parent component app, and the child component label item doesn't own it. Then it can rotate it through make milk like this. Okay, the ugly one is the error. The error is not that good compared to the other stuff, which error is a lot better. Okay, so another thing I do is learning experience. So totally, I took like 2.5 hours to work on the to-do MVC changes, to change the broken to the MVC. Not broken, as in like it doesn't have a lot of feature. And then but it's quite fast. I mean, I'm a bit surprised I can do it in 2.5 hours. I can update the code from not working to more features. And then I only read some pages in the documentation, not all of it, and then I just start changing. I just like, look, a few pages, looks quite easy, then I just change. Yeah, surprisingly, it seemed to work. And then a lot, like let's say compiler-driven development, so quite works. In Rust, usually we have test. Usually in the other languages, we have something called test-driven development. As in you write the test first, and then you write the test first, and then the test break, and then you keep writing the code until the test pass, called test-driven development. But then in Rust, sometimes you heard something called compiler-driven development. As in, you write the code, the compiler doesn't compile. Then you change the code until the compiler compiles, then you work. Because the compiler checks for a lot of things. And then you have one function to render everything and do everything. So it's a bit weird, but yeah, it works. So for this case, no full gas encounter so far. Everything works, and the variable's name also works like magic. Like I'm wondering, how come I can just use this variable here and then specify it here? But even though all the stuff changed, right? I didn't need to. Even though like this item is checked, I don't need to say this event, and then I need to go back and then change this. I don't need to do that. I just say filter everything that is not checked, then just count. Then I'm surprising, how come this works? It's a bit magical. I mean, in this case, in the Deoxys case, and then the four specific thing is a bit too much. So I find it easier than React, easier to change the code, but a bit magical. So let's say for React, how do I start? So this is another example, but this one I'll go through. How do I start React? Usually in React world, we just do yarn create React app. I mean, I use yarn here, you can use npm. And yarn create React app, hello. Then it will create a hello, and then I cd hello, go into hello, and then yarn start. Yarn start, run the build, everything, start the server. And then we edit the app.js. And then it looks like this. React looks like this for hello world. I mean, there are other files, but this is the one file. On the Rust, it's similar, except a bit more step because there's no templating, so I need to run a bit more. As in, I need to cargo new is hello is create a new Rust binary project. Then cargo add Deoxys web is add the library Deoxys and Deoxys web. There's a lot of libraries you can take from the ecosystem. Then Deoxys serve. This one you need to install the Deoxys CI, and then you serve with hot reload. This is hello world. Yeah, preload is like they put everything that is important to import in preload, and then they put this star. Why they put this is because you don't have to import every single thing. You just put one star in preload, and then it import everything. And then, so if let's say you want to support different platform, just change the web to desktop. Yeah, and then you will go to desktop. But maybe not as straightforward as these but something like that. So there's a caveat here is like I mean this is only what I face. Other people say that they have this issue, but like I need to add this cargo config. I need to put this wasm because ask Rust compiler to compile to wasm because Rust analyzer. Okay, so Rust analyzer is Rust LSP language server provider. Language server protocol, it embeds language server protocol, and then so LSP is something like let's say we have many languages, and then we have many editors. So we don't want to like add it. We don't want to have each editor build an add-on for all the languages. So that people build something called LSP. So if the editor implements the language server protocol, and then the language implements the language server protocol, then they can communicate. So they don't need to implement for each language like Vim. Then you need to support this language support this language, this editor support this language. That's why there's LSP. Rust Analyzer is the LSP for Rust. And then there's also CLI. And then when I work, it doesn't work well at first time. So the compilation is a bit ugly because I don't know why it mixes the error. Let's say you see it mixes the error message with the compilation, the text with compilation. So I saw a blog about React hooks was a mistake. I don't know. It just say that, let's say this is I just want to try it out. Can this happen in Rust? Yeah, I just want to try. So so this is an example. So we have a counter button in React, and then we have a function called counter button, and then return this button. So this, just remember that there's a button. This is just a button, and then we have a React component here. So I'll show the React example first, then I'll show the Rust version, and then React with a bug, and then Rust with the bug, and then the React fixed version, and then the Rust fixed version. So there's a state of the game, so looks like this. And then the functional React looks like this, as in like you have a render function. Once you render the component, this is the component, and then you can specify the state here. And then you can click, then you can do something. And then let's say on click, I want to time out. I want in 5 seconds later, I want to print the state count. This works. But let's change this to hooks. So okay, then I come and do a straightforward plot in React. There's function here, I omitted some of the code. And then, so now, so the React hooks use something like this, use state, and then there's a count, And then, so there's this function called increment, and then this function called start. Except exactly the same thing. I mean, if you all use React, but you might notice the issue, or you might not, because it looks like this. So after 5 seconds, what will happen? It's count. What will be printed here? So I won't be running a React version, I'll be running a Rust version here. And then later I'll run it. I think I didn't run it with the bug. So this one, okay, I'll just say this runs with a bug, as in like this score will print 0. Why you print 0 is because when you start, right? When you start, the count is 0. After when this thing runs one round, and then you press already, it's increment and then it start. So when it start, right, this is still 0. So the count is still 0. It didn't get incremented. So this is like their life cycle issue, as in the life cycle, the bug occurs due to life cycle, like as in like it create this promise first. So this set time out runs a promise. So it creates this promise and then it print the promise. And in this case, this count is always 0 because it never changed. So I do a bug per bug copy in Deoxys. Looks like this. A bit long, but this is the first version I did. But then after that I found out I can do a smaller version. So the code looks similar to the React one, except when I look at the Rust version, like it's a bit explicit, as in like I can see I run a clone here. Clone means I copy the variable and then do a version that I copied. So here I can see that it's quite clear that I clone the current version. Then before I clone it, then I send this to the alert. So here I can see this is a bit obvious, as in, oh, I know this is already 0. When I clone it, it's already 0. Then, so this will print 0. So this is a bit on the code is longer, but it's a bit clearer to me, as in like, so this is the clone is 0. Okay, so the fix is, in the case of React, the fix is to add a reference. So it refer to the count. So let's say if the count is changed, right, it changes the reference. So it needs an extra layer called reference to keep track. Oh, this changed. Then only they know, oh, this variable changed in the future. So it needs an extra layer to change. So this is a bit like, so let's say if your project gets bigger, then you need to handle this kind of cases. Of course, I saw the original blog post. Solid don't have this issue because Solid.js uses signals, which solve this, which don't have this issue. But React still have this issue. So the Doxers fixed version SE9 same. I use reference, but I don't need to start a new count because like how is this different? Is like this count is a reference cell as in like I refer to original code. You can see here I do rate, right? So I rate the current version of the variable. Previously is I just print that version that I clone. So which is obviously 0 because I cannot change it after I clone. As in like I do a copy, I copy the variable, so it's 0, then I print here it should be 0. But in this case, okay, I can see that I rate the current variable, what is the current version. So current version is not 0, no longer 0 because I counted, so the count already started, so it's no longer 0, then you print number. So it looks a bit like this. So this looks a bit like this. Let's say I press, you see this variable change. Then only in the future, right, in 5 seconds, something like that, then you print 14. But in the case with the bug, right, it will print 0. So this is the case I tested. And it took me a bit of time to figure this one out because they don't have a lot of examples around. And one thing is this glue dialogues. Yeah, some of the Wasm plugin I used doesn't work. Okay, so there's a Tokyo caveat, as in like I tried using the Tokyo another library, it doesn't really work out. So I'll just skip this part. So the takeaway is there's also example and docs are limited, so something you might need to figure out. But I cannot port the code from React line by line to Rust because both of them have different design. The one in Doxers have like a kind of like it will go through the whole function again when it renders the code, and then when you change the state, it will go through the whole function again. But React doesn't do that. And then the code is more explicit because Rust has the lifetime that incorporate the lifetime inside. And then so there's this issue is like I move this set started here. So somehow the life cycle for this Doxers is a bit special, as in like once the variable change, it will render the whole thing again. And if I set this and then I check, and it will keep looping here again. That's why this is an issue which they didn't solve, as in you cannot figure this out in compile time. That's why I say there's some fugan here, as in you cannot change the variable and then check. So this is an issue. Because once you set the variable, you run the loop again. So what's missing is like this still work in progress, all this stuff. It's not fully mature, quite new. And then the type check CSS, all these are not there. Type check CSS with pipeline. Image pipeline, they don't have image pipeline, but the cross-platform support. And native rendering, as in like the Flutter, as in you can change it to the native code and then you can not yeah, a bit like Flutter also, as in like you can render it looks like a native application. Like on iOS it will look like iOS application. Android you look like Android. It doesn't have that. Yeah, so is there any question? Or maybe I show the enum example. Is there any question?
So any question from the floor?
Okay.
Got no question.
Okay, no, this one mature enough to develop a production ready app software. I would say no because it's quite new. It's still experimental. A lot of API will break. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it deploy in production, but a lot of the things they are still like experimental, and there are some interesting things that they are working on because like this kind of function like component is like quite new. Yeah.
Any question, guys? If you guys don't have any question, I have question. Because under the hood they are running Tauri, right? And I see the code from React and Doxers is quite identical, because if you say you mentioned about the issue on React. You need to use reference, but I see you in Delsus also you use reference. Like, what's the difference between both? Like,
Okay, so the React one, the reference is like so the React is like the reference to another variable. In this case, so it's not like the variable itself is a reference, so it needs to do a reference to a variable. In a Delsus case is like the reference is actually a Rust data structure. It's ref cell, as in like there's something called interim mutability, but it's a bit too deep to explain it now. And so as in like once this is like a way to bypass the compiler borrow checking. So you want to mutate it, but you also want to use it. You want to change the variable without having any issue. That's why we can write it here, and then we can write it here, and then we can write it here. So when we read, right, it will, this one is, there's no runtime cost for this ref cell because it's ref cell internally. It's like a reference, and then once you say the read, then it will bypass the compiler check, and then it will read the variable directly. And then write also bypass the compiler check, and then write the variable directly. So if I'm not mistaken, it's like this because it's not like a mutex or something. Mutex is like only one can write at the same time, but this one is not. This one is like it will like bypass the compiler check and then change the variable directly. It's like there's no check.
So
but this works.
Does this mean like it, because you're mentioning bypassing compiler, right? Does it make it unsafe, as it actually is kind of like violating, not really violating, but it doesn't bound with compiler's rules?
I think when we write for JavaScript like this, is okay, because let's say I write for JavaScript like this, because JavaScript usually you have events coming in, and then you can't do threads, so you can expect to do it concurrent stuff, but then you also can't do threads. That's why you can't do like message passing to different thread. And then I think it's safe is because everything is from the same thread, then you just run it, and then it should be safe.
Okay.
Because everything run like one line at a time, right? It's not like surprise, like as in desktop sometimes you can run from different thread, run this code.
Different. So if like let's say it's in the same thread, but can we like do this concurrently within the same thread?
No, Wasm I don't think Wasm can do thread yet. I mean I did last.
I mean not like do multi-threading, but it's just like concurrently running, maybe concurrently modifying the reference value count, let's say.
No, that cannot happen, right? Because you don't have multiple threads running. Because in JavaScript and Wasm last time I checked you can't.
Okay.
But maybe I think they have a proposal to say, okay, they want to add threads support to Wasm so the web can run faster. But last time I checked, they don't have that, as in like the Wasm and JavaScript. Okay, JavaScript is definitely not multi-threaded.
Single-threaded, yeah.
Yeah, single-threaded. But on the web assembly side, it depends on that. I don't think that is accepted yet. So currently it's expected to be single thread.
Okay.
Yeah, they're still experimental. Yeah. Is there other question? Hmm?
Sorry. Yeah. No, I don't have anything.
Then we close it. If we don't have any question, then I think we will be very done. I think upcoming is just networking section. If let's say you want to ask something personally to everyone, then you can ask me
after.
as well. And everyone of here is just networking, purely networking. If you want to go back and go back. Yeah.
Telegram group.
And we will show you some Telegram, our Telegram group. And if you're interested, then you can join our group as well.
Share screen.
So I think you are pretty late, right? I already introduced them. Yeah.
Stop stream.
Hmm?
Stop stream.
Telegram 我 group 在这边是，yeah，这边哈。
share 过去那边。You can get from me as well later on, so I can just add you, and if you are interested in Rust or personally, you can ask me as well. But I'm not the pro, so I use this for hobby. Most yeah. If you
Yeah.
looking for production level, I think you need to find a way. Yeah.
还有卡这呀。
Okay, thanks everyone.
Okay.